Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter, where on Wednesdays, our theme is Warrior Wednesdays, and I talk to guests who share their short story, man, blah, 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 share their story about their experience of whatever they've gone through, whether it's related to mental health or, as you've seen in the past, some of my guests had traumatic experiences when they were younger, or maybe they went through depression, cancer, lots of different things. But the ultimate goal of Warrior Wednesdays is to showcase individuals' stories and lived experiences so that you can identify and maybe find a little piece of hope in whatever you're going through, because I want you to know that you're not alone. And as a reminder, I do this show 2 times per week on Mondays at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So make sure wherever you're watching this, and if it's on YouTube, mash down the subscribe button. If it is on E360 TV or anywhere else, make sure you follow along. Add us into your favorite list so that you don't miss another episode, because I promise you, the guests that I have on and the guests that are coming up are just so incredible. And if you are somebody who does struggle and you need that extra bit of hope in your life, this is where you will potentially find it. And without further ado, I am going to bring up my friend Beth and my guest for today. Beth, thank you so much for joining me.
Of course. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, well, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
My name is Beth Carlson, and I live in Fort Collins, Colorado. And I am a massage therapist. I specialize in neuromuscular rehabilitation therapy. And so I work with a lot of people with chronic pain patterns and chronic issues that may have come from injuries or surgical procedures or postural abnormalities. And it's really an absolutely wonderful, wonderful thing. And as I was going through my massage therapy career, a few years in, I realized that there was something missing. There was something else that I really wanted to do to help my clients further. I had a lot of clients that would come in and be stuck in that pain pattern. And we could do all of the body work, we could increase range of motion, and we could work on really opening up the tissues and really allowing good blood flow and getting all the physical stuff aligned. And as I would do that, some people would still come back every now and then with the exact same pattern the next time. And there was another element going on. There was something else happening, another thing that was holding them in that stuckness, in that place. And so I decided there was something else I wanted to add to my offerings so that I could help those people, so that I could help them work through that and out of the stuckness. It also coincided perfectly with things happening in my life. I was incredibly stuck and I didn't know what to do. I was having physical symptoms, physical issues that I felt like I had no control over. I would wake up from having nightmares at night, and I would be in so much pain that I wouldn't be able to work the next day. Or I would have to take a bunch of painkillers to get through the day. And I didn't understand what was happening to my body. And at that time in my life, I also was experiencing being stalked. And that was a very scary, very emotionally draining, physically draining, mentally draining experience. And I didn't understand why all the physical symptoms were coming up. I had some idea, but I didn't really get why all of it was happening at once. Well, after doing a lot more education, I learned that trauma can manifest as physical symptoms and physical issues and dis-ease that can turn into disease if left untreated. And so I was noticing all of these things in my body, and body work wasn't the answer. It wasn't making a big enough difference for me to feel normal again, or what was my normal at the time. And so I went to a couple of classes. I took some self-defense classes, which helped increase my confidence a bit, and made me feel a little bit better, but still not back to my norm. I also was offered a mental health first aid class, and that was something that was enormously helpful. I learned even more about PTSD and about complex PTSD, and more about how our mental health affects our body, mind, and soul, all of the above, the whole package. And so I decided to talk with the instructor who taught the class and ask some questions to see what I could do, what other tools or resources were out there to help me through this really intense time that I was in. And she said that she also offered coaching sessions. So I went to meet with her. She had been a student of mine in massage therapy school, actually, this wonderful person. And she, after offering the mental health first aid class, offered just to chat, just to talk more about my story and what I was experiencing. And that was such a great experience. That was such a wonderful, supportive thing that she did for me. And so as we talked, we identified some interesting things that were happening for me. And she would ask a question in a way that helped me to make sense of things all of a sudden, or helped me to make connections that I hadn't ever made before in patterns that I have maybe noticed individually, but didn't realize that they were all connected. And I realized that childhood trauma, that childhood abuse had created this complex PTSD that I was experiencing. And that major events happening in my adult life were really taking me back into that space of fear, of feeling like I wasn't in control, of being afraid for my life. And that was so intense at that time that I was in these nightmares that I was having. I was also muscle armoring. So my muscles were tightening up so much that they were twisting my spine. My neck was twisting one direction, my sacrum was twisting the other, and that's where the fascia around the spinal cord attaches to the vertebrae, the bones. And so it was actually twisting my spinal cord, and I was having all sorts of interesting, awful symptoms. And I was having some visual disturbances, and I was having horrible pain. I couldn't swallow. It was so fascinating to me as a pathology and physiology teacher too, that I was noticing all these really interesting, awful, horrible things happening in my body. And I wanted to know why. I wanted to know why it was happening now. And I made a lot of those connections and started to understand myself better through these questions that this friend was asking me. And I asked her what she was doing that was different, because it seemed like everyone that I had talked to before, I had tried talk therapy and I had tried a couple other things. And the people that I had talked to before, it just didn't seem to really help. It just didn't seem to do anything to help me move forward and to live the life I wanted to live. And so I asked her, what is it that you're doing that's different? And she said that she was using coaching skills, that she had used these skills along with touch therapy and body work to help clients that were really stuck in trauma. And so I learned from her more about coaching, and it was inspiring to me, and it made sense to me to learn more about that and then offer that to my clients. The people that were so stuck in these pain patterns, in these chronic issues that would continually come back with the same problem, obviously needed something else as well to help them work through that and get out of that stuckness. And that's where I learned a lot more about coaching, and then became a coach.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, there's so much goodness that you just shared of what you do, but where you came from, and then how it all just kind of shifted. And I didn't know, it's very interesting when you said that you're like clenching or like freezing up your muscles kind of is in my brain. How it translated was like, if I'm constantly like doing this, or like it actually twists your spine, which is so interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, some of the symptoms can be so strong and so intense that it can cause really interesting things to happen in the body.
That's so interesting. And I know, I mean, both of us being coaches, which is something we'll totally get to here in just a little bit, but I also know, I think I know the person that you're talking about that had offered the mental health first aid class, and you started talking about this. And if it is the same person, very similar, I learned a lot from her as far as massage therapy and trauma or mental health challenges, because our issues live in our tissues is one thing that I learned. And if you're not working out those challenges mentally and you're just doing it physically, it can actually manifest or come out as mental health challenges. I didn't even know that.
Absolutely. Things that that we hold on to that we haven't processed, or things that have been traumatizing to us, can manifest in so many ways, and it can be different for every person. And we know that certain emotions or certain things that we've held on to can manifest in specific areas of the body. We do know that they have that tendency, at least. It's not necessarily the case every time, because everyone's different. However, it's really interesting. It's fascinating to me to understand how that happens in the body. When we have trauma, our brain responds differently to stressors after that. And so we can much quicker, much easier go into a stress response, whether the stress is real or just perceived in our mind. And so when, for example, when I was experiencing being stalked, my kidneys shut down as well, which was fascinating to me and horrible. But it was so intense. I didn't know why it was happening. I didn't understand the connection between fear and being in that stress response for so long, that it can affect your organs. And kidneys, the adrenal glands that sit on top of the kidneys, release cortisol, which is our stress hormone. And your organs can lose how they function. They can have issues in operating the way that they're supposed to. And they can also just really, it can affect multiple tissues. So not just an organ, but multiple tissue systems. So your muscles, your vascular system, your immune system. When you're in a stress mode repeatedly for a long time, those systems are stressed and they can lose some of their ability to function correctly and at their optimum. And it's so interesting to notice that in your own body. When you, it's an experience, and it's not one I want to repeat, but it's definitely something that now I know if something does come up, if I do notice those symptoms, I know what to do now. And I have so many more tools that I can use to help myself through whatever it is that I notice. It's awesome.
That's amazing. And I think about, or I've heard a lot, the more stressed you are, you're just dumping stress hormones in your body, which is not good for you. And ultimately, that's what manifests physical symptoms. And like you said, it can literally shut down your organs. And I know I've heard of other people that completely lose their sight, and it's something that was triggered within your body, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be that way. And that's something really cool to know, that we can start, whether it's trying to communicate with these symptoms or we want to just figure out why they're doing what they're doing. Why are we stuck in this pain pattern, as you talked about earlier, and how can we get out of it? So, one thing that popped into my head is, if you are having physical dis-ease or these challenges that are coming up, don't just take them as face value, because it may be something else that's going on that could potentially be changed or shifted or understood a little bit more. And that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting how when I attune into my body, and when I'm really aware of all the things that I'm noticing, tension, my heart rate, my breathing, when I can pay attention to the little things, it helps me to notice when there's a little change. And then I can start making different choices or working on it quickly, instead of waiting for it to get worse and to affect my day-to-day existence. And it's wonderful to have tools that we can use and that are helpful to move us through those times when things do come up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to take a short little commercial break, but I want to come back and talk about those tools, those resources that we keep hinting at, and what those might look like, but then also maybe some tips or things that people could watch out for if they're not in tune with their body. So we'll talk about those once we get back. And like that, we're back. So we were,
Magic.
yeah, it's magic. We were talking with Beth about her experience through the childhood trauma and abuse that she experienced, but also her being a massage therapist and really or having the space that opened up to her to have access to tools and resources to really understand her body a little bit better. And as she was going through an experience of her organs actually shutting down and realizing how that could be shifted because or due to a stalking event that was happening over time. We just never know how these things are going to manifest physically. And what I do want to talk about now is these tools and resources that we keep alluding to. I am curious. So, somebody that is not maybe really in tune with their body, maybe they don't go to a massage therapy that is so knowledgeable like you are, or maybe they take things as face value, whether it's their doctor telling them or a family member telling them or them telling themselves. What would you say or recommend or do when or if you were somebody like that? I guess I don't know if that's even the
Yeah,
best question, but that's what's coming out.
that's a great question, actually. A lot of people who have experienced trauma can become dissociated from their body because their body might not feel safe, or they might have dissociated during a trauma and that felt safer to them. And so it's hard to come back into your body and notice things when you're in pain. A lot of people will not want to feel what's happening in their body if they're in pain. And so there's only so many pain messages that can get into the brain at once. It's like opening a gate in a corral. Only so many horses can get through the gate at one time. So the brain will often numb areas of the body. Because it's heard the pain message, it's something else is more important right now, so I'm going to pay attention to that, and that's going to go down on the priority list. That's what the brain does sometimes. And so it's interesting that some people might even be numb and might not feel a lot of sensation in certain areas of their body as well. And so something that I recommend to massage therapy clients who notice these things is, well, I educate them first. We work with, I do a lot of education with my clients, and we work with their muscles and their movements in a way that's very safe for that individual. So whatever that means for that individual, we might work fully clothed. We might work just doing some movement exercises first and just doing some gentle stretching. I'll do some breathing exercises with them and just have them notice whatever it is they notice during those times with me while it's safe and I'm there to help them. If there's a movement therapist that they know, or a somatic therapist, or someone that they know that they can work with, or someone that they can be referred to by their doctor perhaps that they can work with, that's a great way to start kind of waking up their body again, and waking up that connection between the mind and the body, and really bringing back that awareness. But doing it safely with someone they trust, who's a professional, is absolutely the best way to do that. A lot of really good massage therapists can work with their clients in that safe way, and some need a little more training. It just depends on the therapist and their level of education and how much they work with clients who've experienced trauma. And so it is important to ask. It's a good question to ask, if maybe they haven't worked with a lot of clients with trauma that have had trauma in their past, or have expressed that to them, and maybe looking for a different therapist that might be the right fit then would be better. So it just depends on the person.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, It's kind of, I talk a lot about, especially with mental health, is you have to advocate for yourself. You have to advocate for others. If you're a parent, if you're a caregiver, if you are in that space that you're able to advocate for somebody else,
Mhm.
advocating is important. The same goes with if you're going to a massage therapist or a doctor or a chiropractor or anybody really. Um,
Yeah,
it's okay to advocate for yourself, but it's also okay to find somebody else that fits, because
absolutely.
there's so many. I mean, really, there's so many doctors, there's so many massage therapists, there's so many chiropractors, right? There's all these people, and just because you go to that, and including therapists and psychologists and all of those,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
can go to somebody else. It's okay to say, hey, and I know that sometimes if we have shoved down this trauma and it's so far down that we don't even know that it's there, and then all of a sudden it starts coming out, or something, some sort of feeling starts to come out as you're getting a massage, it's okay to say something's going on, and try to figure out what is going on. And maybe if that massage therapist is not educated in that, start asking questions. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
just a thought that popped in my head.
Yeah, body work is one of those really interesting modalities that can definitely bring experiences that we've had in the past, memories, um, trauma to our awareness, but in a way that we might not realize that that's what it is. So we might start crying during a session when they're working on a specific muscle. We might start laughing uncontrollably and we don't know why. We could start uh, breathing very shallowly and quick and not understand why our breathing changed. There could be lots of things that can happen during body work or even during exercise, like even during like yoga. You could have something come up for you that's new and different and not your norm, or something that you're noticing that's uncomfortable. And exploring that is good, and doing that with a safe person for you is really good too. Making sure that you're asking your doctor, making sure that you're asking whoever's with you at that time, the yoga instructor or your massage therapist. And with me, I am very, very sensory acute, and I notice those very small changes in the client. And so I tend to ask before they say anything, um, how are you doing right at this moment? What do you need right at this moment? Are you noticing something happening as I'm working in this tissue? And then we can discuss what's happening. They know that they're safe, and we can talk about what they need in that moment. And I absolutely honor whatever that is. So if we need to end the session a little early, if we need to take a few deep breaths together, if they need to get up and move a little bit, we can do all of those things, whatever it is that they feel is needed at that time. And there are a lot of scope of practice boundaries for massage therapists. So it's really important that if we're not going to stick with massage therapy, that we end the session so that they feel safe, can come back into whatever it is that they need in their body, and then we might um, schedule a coaching session right after that to get into what they noticed, and then be in that space of coaching. Um, it's an interesting dynamic, having all the knowledge that I have and being a little limited in that massage therapy side. And so I do offer. I like that I can offer both. Yeah.
So I'm curious because, I mean, Wednesdays are really about the warrior's journey, and how, I know you talked a little bit about it, but, and of course, however comfortable you are, I know that I know more of your story, but I would love for you to just share your experience and how you went from these traumas that you experienced into really hope. And I know you briefly
Yeah,
touched on it too, but I would love to expand upon that if you wouldn't mind.
absolutely. Yeah. I experienced years of repeated abuse as a child, and I never told my parents what was happening. And it was really difficult. I felt like my life was in, well, I knew at the time, I knew my life was in danger. It started very young, and at at that point when my brain was developing, having the abuse present wired certain neurological pathways in my brain to have a stress response. And so as I grew up, it was it was really difficult to understand sometimes my emotions, to understand why I felt a certain way, or why there were times where I can't tell you how many where I would sit with a bottle of medication in my hand and just wonder, how many do I have to take to not wake up? I I didn't ever try, but I would sit there and think about it, and that scared me, and that was uncomfortable. It was different than what I knew otherwise. We didn't talk about suicide. It wasn't something that was discussed a lot when I was growing up. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and there wasn't a lot of awareness. There wasn't a lot of talking about our emotions openly and talking about trauma. Uh, and so I just really didn't know what to do with myself. I just stuffed it all away. I just stuffed it really deep down as far as I could, so that I couldn't, so that I didn't have to think about it, and it didn't interrupt what I had to do during the day. I had to go to school, and I loved school because was um, it was a safe place. It was somewhere where I could excel, and so I really dove into school. And then I went to college, and I noticed as I was getting into my 20s that I was having a lot of trouble sleeping. I was having cycles of insomnia and not understanding why that was happening, not understanding why uh, I would often just feel like a zombie during the day. And I just was getting sick so much in my early 20s. And then I got married, and married a man who also had a lot of issues, a lot of anger issues. And I didn't know what to do with that. I thought it was my fault for the first year. I cried myself to sleep at night for the first year because I thought it was me. I thought there was something wrong with me. There was something I was doing to cause this anger. The second year, I decided to scream and yell and call him names back and be abusive as well. And that was the worst year. That was not me, and that was not the person I wanted to be. And it was horrible. It was absolutely awful. The third year, I decided not to care anymore. That didn't help either. So, so I ended up leaving him and asking for a divorce, and got it and moved on. That's the point where I decided to go to massage school. I wanted to do something for myself that was something I wanted, that something that I wasn't told to do, I wasn't expected to do. I just wanted it for me. I wanted to heal, and I wanted to help other people heal. And I knew that massage therapy had helped me with a shoulder injury I had as a kid, and I wanted that. I wanted to help people feel good in their bodies. And and so when I got divorced and moved, I moved into my parents' basement for a few years, and that was I mean, not ideal, but it was so wonderful to have that support when I needed it. And I am so grateful for that. And I put myself through massage school, and it was an interesting experience. There were some things that I started noticing that were coming up for me as I received a lot of body work, and some interesting tightening of muscles patterns in my body that I would notice. And I didn't quite know what to do with it at that time. And so I just kind of kept on going. And as I graduated massage therapy school and was building my clientele, and I got hired by the school I graduated from to be their clinic coach, a clinic supervisor, and to teach in the core curriculum. And I had a lot of conversations with the school owner about just how to deal with different types of people, how to help students that had had trauma. And as I talked with him about their situations, it was helping me with mine as well. And that was really a big deal for me. That opened a few more doors for me to start educating myself more about trauma and more about what it is that I needed and what I wanted to support myself. And then, as I went through working with so many different people, so many different bodies with so many different issues, it just became more and more apparent that there was that part that was missing. There was that that mental, emotional connection to the body that I wanted to work with as well. And that's where coaching came in. And my path in moving from that state of chronic stress, chronic fear, avoidance, nightmares, muscle armoring, all of the things that I was experiencing were absolutely necessary for me, because it took me to a place where I had to do something about it. I couldn't let it continue. And I had enough knowledge that I knew I knew to ask some people for help. And that's a big deal when you're someone that doesn't ask for help. And every now and then I notice myself not asking for help, and I need to kind of go in and check in and see what's going on there to see if I do actually need to ask for help in some way. So, I mean, I still notice things that come up, and now I just have all the tools to help myself through them and help manage them and do what I need to do.
That's awesome. And thank you, first and foremost, of sharing your story and being vulnerable and allowing people in a little bit more. I know there's a lot more that goes to it, but we only have an hour. So
Right.
what I would love to, and I know we have talked about coaching, and we are both neuro-linguistic programming, well, now trainers.
Yes.
And we have had a chance to really be in the same class several times, or in the same training several times. And I want to tell you that the progression that I've seen just over time, I know that you opened up a lot of space when we were in Master Practitioner training. And I noticed when some of those, I guess, eggs were cracked, that it just opened up even more, that you're like, oh, wow, I need to check into that. And I think that is one of the coolest things that I love about NLP and what it can do for you, and how this coaching, or using that type of modality with coaching, can be so powerful. And what I would love for you to share is, what does NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, mean to you, other than the ability to help your massage clients?
Right. So neuro-linguistic programming for me personally has been a path to a peace, a level of peace that I have within me, a knowingness that I will get through anything life throws my way, a a solid foundation of tools that I can use when I do have something that comes up or when I am struggling. Because I am, we're all human and we're all still going to have things that come up for us. Even if we think we've completely worked through something, there might be something that comes up again. Not always, but sometimes. And just knowing that I still have those tools that I can use to really come back into that peace and into that knowingness. It's like having freedom that you've never had before. It's like a sensation of a state of flow, I think is what I would call it. It's a great place to be in life, going through life. When you're finally, it's like being finally introduced to the love of your life, if I can put it that way. I I'm remarried to my husband Chris, and he is the most amazing support and the most wonderful human being I've ever known. And it getting NLP in my life was very much like having Chris in my life. It was having that solid rock that you can lean on, having that amazing resource of support and help and structure when you need it, and freedom when you need it, and just all the amazing resources that I had somewhere deep inside that I just wasn't allowing out or wasn't allowing myself to receive. And I love that about NLP. NLP has absolutely transformed my life, not just my physical symptoms, but also how I connect with my body, how I check in with myself, how I go through my day, how I interact with others, and especially the people that I love and the clients that I see all the time. The people that are in my life are there because they're meant to be. And the things that have happened in my life, not that they were meant to be, but I've been able to use my experiences as learnings. And that changing my perspective around them, to use them as learnings, as tools to help me decide what I want in life, help me decide what I don't want in life, so that I'm on the path I want to be on, is amazing. It's been such a wonderful gift to be able to do that. And I was not in a place to do that before before NLP. And so I just feel like this door is opened, and it's just such an amazing space to be in.
That's awesome. I love that you said going through life, right? It's not this thing that feels hard, and it has more joy, and you have more awareness of how you're going through life. I thought that was really cool how you put that. And I know we talked a little bit about cracking that egg open a little bit more when we went through Master Prac. And I know at one point you were also able to finally have a conversation with your parents about what you had experienced. And
Yeah.
I I noticed the change even after you were able to do that too, of there was so much more peace, as
Yeah.
you said. And that's just incredible that that was also a process you were able to go through, because not everybody gets that chance.
Right. Um, yeah, I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to do that. And I am so grateful for the support that my parents have given. And, you know, when people don't know what's happened to you, for you, with you in your past, they don't know what might trigger a reaction in you that you don't feel like you can control. Or, you know, when we feel triggered, oftentimes it's just a response to a stimulus, and it's something that may have been hardwired at some point in your neurology because something was so intense in that moment that it wired that neurological connection to that response. And so that's the response that you would then have when that trigger comes up again. And that's something that I was dealing with too. I was having, panic attacks, and I felt like I couldn't control my emotional state, huge mood swings. I would have, I would become very depressed. I would isolate myself. There were a lot of things happening that I just felt like I couldn't control. And so being able to communicate that finally to the people that I love, that matter to me the most, being able to verbalize something I hadn't said audibly out loud to anyone on this planet almost my entire life, that was an enormous part of my healing. And for me, that's what I needed to do. I needed to tell my parents. And I have, um, my parents were divorced when I was very young, and they are both happily remarried. And I love all of them. And I'm so lucky to have 4 amazing, supportive parents in my life.
That's awesome.
And they were very open to hearing and listening, and I set some ground rules and boundaries, and they followed, and they've been really amazing and supportive still ever since. And it's been a healing journey for all of us, I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I did also bring you on here, which you know, but I want you to share a little bit with the audience about there's a training coming up this weekend,
There is.
and I would love for you to just share a little bit about that.
I will. So I am also an NLP, or Neuro-Linguistic Programming trainer, and I am training an Introduction to NLP workshop this Saturday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Zoom, and that's Mountain Daylight Time. So here in Denver, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. this Saturday, April 22nd. And it's going to be a really great introduction to what neuro-linguistic programming is, to a little touch on the history of it, how it came about, and what it can do for you, what it can do for people. And we're going to learn some really awesome basic communication skills and things that can really help people to connect, to build rapport, to ask the right questions, to get more information and clarity so that communication is clear and easy and feels effortless. And that is such a gift that we can give to people, because we often have miscommunications, and it's easy when you know some basics from NLP to understand why that happens and how you can change the way that you communicate so that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so if anybody wants to sign up for that, where should they go?
I have my website is a great place to go. It's bodywork by Beth.massagetherapy.com. And I have a workshops and events page on my website, and it's listed there with the registration link. And I'm asking a self-investment of $97 for the workshop. It's 3 hours, and I charge $100 an hour in my coaching practice. And so it's a pretty great deal to learn some really awesome stuff.
Did I get that right? Make sure that I...
Bodywork by Beth.massagetherapy.com. Yes.
Cool.
Perfect.
Make sure I spelled it right. Yeah. So
Yes.
if you want to learn more about NLP in general or neuro-linguistic programming, how you can communicate better, join this introduction to NLP. I know it is this Saturday coming up. However, you may see some faces that you know in there. Oh, which way are you? You're on that side of the screen.
Yeah.
You also, that will... all of us, we have a team in Colorado that is really trying to get more awareness around NLP, and we'll be doing a lot more of these introductions to NLP too. But Beth, I am so grateful. It was totally last minute, so I really appreciate you coming on the show as my special guest and sharing your story, which I know that you haven't really put it out into the public as of yet. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your experience and connecting with the audience here.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for asking me for the opportunity. It's been great.
Yay. All right. All right, y'all. Oh my gosh, that was another amazing episode of Make Mental Health Matter with the theme of Warrior Wednesdays on Wednesdays. As a reminder, this show, we run it 2 times per week, on Mondays at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Pretty much every single episode is live, unless for some reason I'm doing something, but otherwise it comes to live on E360 TV and Achieve TV channel. We also go out to Roku, Apple TV, Google, I don't know, a whole bunch of places. Or maybe you're somebody who likes to listen better. We do also stream to all or most of the podcast channels too. So wherever you are listening, watching, whatever you're doing right now, make sure you mash down that subscribe button or add this into your favorites list so that you don't miss another episode, because I promise you, my guests on Monday are just amazing, incredible people that bring resources centered around mental health and suicide prevention. And then on Wednesdays, we share the journeys and the experiences of those that have gone through a challenge in their life, so that you have an opportunity to really identify with them, and maybe you get a little piece of hope if you happen to be somebody who are struggling. Either way, whichever show resonates with you, I would love to have you follow along on this journey. Share this with anybody that you think that this information will be useful for, and make sure, if you want to go sign up for that intro to NLP, I promise you just heard from Beth. She's amazing, and it will be an amazing workshop for you just to get a little taste. What is NLP? And if for some reason you can't make it, because I know it's Saturday, we're going to have another one in in June. And I will share more about that as we go along. So thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next Monday. Bye, y'all.